we look at the past, I would hope we can get inspired by looking at the craftsmanship and looking at the details and long to build better because we see beautiful things like this. Okay, so changes to building, right? I've got this picture. This is a tool museum in France, okay? And what struck me was all these different axes, and these would have been for timber framing, right? Everyone was custom made, okay? Everyone was made by an individual. He would go to either an axe maker or just a blacksmith and say, I need the handle to be this short, and I want it to be round, I want it to be curved. But they would have determined, okay, each one of these things was custom made, is my point, right? In our period we're going to, the hammer basically is invented, right? You don't really have hammers like being the major tool in a carpenter's bag until we have cut nails, okay? So building is also going to change a tremendous amount in this period, but before this, everything was handmade. Tools were handmade, everything was custom. Then you begin to get industrialized and it changes quite a bit. What changes it the most is the steam engine. It's my kind of focus for this time. Early steam engines were invented in the early 1700s. They were used for pumping water out of a coal mine where water would fill in, but the coal was right there. Very inefficient machines, didn't work very well. Maybe had 5 horsepower of power. James Watt's improvements in 1774 improved things and continue to improve. And so James Watt's first steam engine wasn't very powerful because he was afraid to compact the steam enough, and so the pressure casing that would hold the steam got better and better and better and better, and that's what allows steam engines that start to show up in the U.S. mills in the 1830s, 1840s, is because of James Watt's invention. The coreless steam engine, early in 1849, it's used into the 1950s, 1960s, and there's iterations of this style that are still being used, the coreless engine. This is what a mill looked like. Okay, what's going on? What's going on? I think I drew a picture of a mill. Basically, before this time period, a mill looked like, especially a water mill, basically was on a river. Okay, and so you would have this mill sitting right here. And they would gate, there's a gate here in this river, okay, that would come along, and they'd have a gate here that would swing in and swing out. So the river's running along here, and they would build these water gates that would open up and then power this water wheel. There's a shaft that runs through here, okay, and then that shaft runs up to a large belt system over top, and then those belts come down and do individual machines, right? So that would have been a water wheel machine, but this concept is what the steam power guys used, that early on the steam power mills couldn't drive a shaft like this. That very quickly they figured out how to do that. And so what's happening is you have a steam mill somewhere out here running underground that runs up and starts turning all these shafts. And if you've ever seen one of these machines, basically these belts hang loose and just kind of flop, and then you push in and engage it, and everything starts up, right? So it's a pretty ingenious system, but this is what a manufacturer mill, this is later, this is probably 1900, 1890, but some of these things where they're making stair parts and different things here, but this is where they're going, right? And this is what allows us to build, or them to build the way they were building. Kind of crazy. So how did these show up in catalogs, right? It's because of the machinery and because of the things I've said before. By 1860, every machine that we use in our shop down in Benbrook was available back in, okay? So you'll see some examples of that. Early molding machines. This is, I think it's 1850. That one's 1850s. Notice the parts, okay? It's a combination of wood and metal, okay? So the very early 1840, 1850 machines were a combination of wood and metal. You begin to have, at this time period, portable machines, because the steam engine can be portable. You actually are able to take a steam engine and go into the woods and actually cut trees down and do things like that. This is where this is, what's that, 1870s, right? So by 1870s, that's a molding machine. I've seen machines that look like this, right? I can't remember the name of the thing. Our first molding machine was a machine like this. That was like a 1920s or 1930s. The design didn't change very much. I had a joiner with a wheel exactly like that was adjusting my table. So this design and these details, happens back then. They're talking about in this book. This article is written by, I think I got the guy's name. I'll need to give him credit. Anyway, it's an APT article, Association Preservation Technology article that he wrote, talking about the influence of machines. But they were saying that this Gothic kind of tracery, right, that would have been in a window wasn't possible without this machine. So these shapers, these spindle shapers that would allow you to drop a frame onto a knife and then cut this profile out, was what allowed them to do the designs and the details that they were doing. So very influential machines. So the most important machines are molding machine, right? Making flooring. Making flooring like this was a huge deal, where you could actually tongue and groove and make it flat, because before you were basically fitting boards down into, you think about your joists running along, they would shave a little bit here, they'd shave a little bit there. They didn't have that clean line joist, drop boards down, throw them together, tongue and groove. They were doweling boards together, 40 years before this. And so huge advancements in the speed and the ability that they would have because of these machines is overwhelming. I include this one because what year is 1854? That's a duplicarver, right? So they would have had a sample here, but this thing, router heads coming down and duplicarving things out, right? 1850s. That's crazy. And that's a dangerous machine right there. A wood table, knives coming out of that thing. I could digress about some ugly stories.